to introduce Dave Michaels. He is retired Norfolk Southern and Southern Railway employee. Worked in the tower at Inman, and I'll let him go through his spate of jobs if he so desires, but he's a lifelong rail fan, and he's also a club member and lives in Cincinnati. Grew up on the CNO and TP in Erlanger before moving over to the west side. So this kind of goes into his west side roots, where he is a resident of the west side now of Cincinnati. Dave, I'd like to welcome you up to the microphone and give you the keys.
Hi there. As you probably already know, my name's Dave Michaels, and I want to clarify one thing about lifetime rail fan. There was a 30-year gap in that rail fanning interest when I actually worked for the railroad, and then of course I hated trains. They didn't do anything but cause me trouble. But after I got away from it and I could actually watch a train go by and not feel responsible for something going wrong, I kind of got back into it. Anyway, the topic here is trains along River Road, and we're going to get into this, a few pictures, and everybody's going to say, "What the heck? I've seen better pictures than this," and you probably have. There's enough of them out there, but these are different pictures. You haven't seen them because I never really showed them to anybody. They were all taken by me, and the earlier stuff before about the mid 60s was taken by my father. So without further ado, we'll get started here. And we're going to be focusing on two railroads, the forerunner of which one of them was the Cincinnati, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Chicago, which later morphed into the Big Four: New York Central, Penn Central, Conrail, and then Central of Indiana. And this is one of their stock certificates. And the vignette on the stock certificate is labeled "View at North Bend, Ohio," which is pretty much what it is. And you can see a side wheeler out there at the river. The other one would be the Ohio and Mississippi, which was built in the 1850s, and it was a 6-foot gauge railroad to collect with the Erie, and by about 1859 they had a complete line from Jersey City to St. Louis with 6 feet, but they changed all that. Anyway, here's a picture of the vignette on their stock certificate, and you can see that's engine number 13, O&M number 13. So I went and looked in my book of Cincinnati locomotive builders, and sure enough, O&M 13 was built by the Niles and Company Locomotive Works of Cincinnati, and it was delivered to the O&M in May 1854. So there's a nice pre-Civil War locomotive. The Cincinnati builders were going full blast up until 1857. And then the panic of 1857 pretty much did them in except for one. And they turned out their last engine about 1868. But now we'll get started with this stuff. Here's a picture where we're starting. You can see the B&O yard at stores, the southwest approach. Here's what it looked like in 1964 when we hit about, I think, 68 feet, something like that. Here's a picture of the James Whitcomb Riley in the Penn Central era on the southwest approach, getting ready to duck under the Southern. And here's the B&O train going out there. I was on the Southern Railway bridge to take that one. Now, this is the Oklahoma track. He's coming through the flood wall. Cincinnati Junction's on the other side, and the B&O and New York Central and Penn Central, they would come out this way. And later on, you can see the platform of the Amtrak station that would appear in 1972. So now I'm just going to go through some shots through the years at what New York Central called Oklahoma and the B&O called stores. There's some shots. There's an S2. Here's one of the Amtrak in the early days, still using E units. There's an early chassis section engine with the all-global viaduct in the background. Rare picture of an Ontario Northland 40-foot boxcar. Some more pictures there. Pretty much the way it was. That's what the station crew looked like back in about 73. Then after the Penn Central gave it up, Cindy and the I&O, which were related, ran the track along River Road. Here's some of their equipment. They had really good looking equipment and some other stuff too. They had lease engines that they'd get down there to take a look at. And there's a color position signal for the B&O. There's a CN, a Cape Breton and Nova Scotia engine, which was probably a Rail America subsidiary. There he is again. Some of their SD40s. This is a CSX freight train coming in off the St. Louis division with a lease engine on the head end. I want to say I didn't live around here when I took most of these pictures. But I came back a lot, and I would always go down there and take a look at things. So I got some pictures through the years. There's some SP units. All right, now we're going to go down the line a little bit further to Sedansville. This is when the train was still running on the old Big 4 line to Indianapolis. And this is a typical James Whitcomb Riley of the early 70s. And here's another day with a C&O Jeep with a steam generator, and he's going in front of the German Evangelical Lutheran Church. And actually, I had one set of my great grandparents was actually married in that church in 1884, but it's torn down now. And here he is going along, nice dome car. This would be the George Washington going west, and followed. I probably took this about 90 seconds later. There's the Riley. This is, what's that?
Was that pre-Amtrak?
No, that was Amtrak with all that different. Well, let's see. That's pre-Amtrak. And this is a L3A, I believe, Mohawk at Riverside Yard, just sitting there in the deadline. Now that would have been one my father took. And this is just about the same location in about 1970. Here's a picture from Southside Avenue looking at Riverside Yard. This is all Kramer and Amazon now. You'd never know this ever existed. But they that was their intermodal yard. And they ran these trailer trains, even the ones that were going up towards Cleveland, they originated out of here. They came in. Oh, okay. This is a set of fire that just came in and was running around the yard. This is down by Wade, Idaho Street. This is more the north end of the yard, or the east end. Now he's coming right out onto Idaho Street. Wade Tire. I don't have any pictures of that, but it was there. The traffic lights there are the intersection of River Road and Southside Avenue. Now this is about late 73, and believe it or not, that train's on the Big Four main line. That's how far down it had come, and they had I think by this time they had removed the Riley from this route, which made the River Road Amtrak station kind of in a bad spot. And this is the west end of the yard. That's on the main line. That's a cut of L&N coal coming over from DeCourcy. This is at the east end of the yard. And now we're a few years later and it's gone. This would be in the late 80s, and it's the central of Indiana now. And of course, this was long before the Honda plant. This is a CSX train with CP power. This is a eastbound coming along the athletic fields there on River Road, right before you got to Idaho Street. And I just found out that this was a Brookville excursion in, what'd you say, Chris, 1995? Yeah, I was just up here and I drove by there and saw it, took that picture. Here's a couple of big Alcos that had just brought a cut over to Riverside Yard. They cut off and are in the process of running back through the yard. You can see in the background they still got the type G signals on the New York Central. Here's a St. Louis Division freight coming in by the athletic fields. If you know where Jim and Jack's is, this is going by there. This would have been a St. Louis train, pre-Amtrak. And he's down to just a couple of cars. There's a St. Joe job in the 90s using the colorful stealth livery that they seem to like. Here's a westbound CSX train, and you rarely see something like this today. Most of their traffic is eastbound except for locals. Here's the scrap line under Mount St. Joe. This would have been about 1957. and the fall of 1957. And this engine 1576, the reason my father took a picture of that was assigned to the Brookville local there at the end, and they switched the coal yard where he worked, and he knew the crew that worked that engine. Now this is at Moskowitz Brothers on River Road. This is about a half a mile west of the ferry. Just cutting up engines. And Chris and I were trying to figure out exactly what this was. It says it's 1554, which would have been a number of a New York Central 282, but it could have been something else too. I can't say for sure at this time. Now we're moved down a little bit further. This is down at Sailor Park, right near where Gracely comes into River Road, and this would have been the winter of 57, 58 when this was pretty much the last of the steam on B&O, at least around here. They had already done their number change, and what steam engines they had all had 3-digit numbers. This is 376. That's a little bit later, and in the 90s, coming by there, the light for Gracely Avenue and Sailor Park. Oop, going the wrong way. Here's Penn Central empty hoppers coming along past River Park. This is probably from a utility up in Indianapolis when that line was still usable. Here, this is around where Bender Road comes into it. Of course, that wasn't there then. There's what a B&O caboose looked like at that time. And there was always plenty of these signs, which never really deterred anybody. Here's this is down around Sailor Park. This is pre-Amtrak.
That's where they're coming from St. Louis, though?
No, it's just out of Cincinnati.
Oh, I mean, but the train direction is for.
It's going to St. Louis. Yeah, you could go down there, and they were both due out of the terminal at the same time. If you made one trip down there, you always got both trains. Sometimes the B&O train would be ahead. Sometimes the New York Central train.
Did they have the name George Washington?
Yeah, they changed the name.
Oh, okay.
That's a road into a junkyard down there. River Road Auto Parts, great place. Yeah, it's a little bit further west of. Yeah.
That's where the scrapyard used to be back in there.
Well, the scrapyard was actually further upstream.
Oh, okay.
It was relatively close to the ferry.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is Ohio River Company at Addiston. They were one of the last industries still switching with steam engines. So my dad took me down there, and that's me standing on the front end. I got to ride around with the fellas, you know. There's a couple of their other ones. This would have been about 1960, I think. Next, I got a series of pictures here. I hope they won't bore you too much. I thought they were pretty neat. This was a derailment on the B&O, which spilled over onto the New York Central. So they had everything shut down. And the B&O train master, my father worked at that coal yard, and he kind of set up operations at my dad's desk. Now here's one of their derricks. This is a new one. This is a diesel that came out of Cincinnati. There's the cause of the wreck.
Oh, just like up at East Palestine.
Well, not exactly, but that was a broken wheel. Now you see here, this is the B&O derrick that came in from the west, and you can see it's a steam derrick. And that's fertilizer in that car. And my dad asked them, and they said, "Take all you want." And we had stacks of those bags in the garage for many, many years because he got a lot of it. Yeah, that was. How many cars? No, it looks to be about 20.
What year was that?
May 1959.
Now, this shut down both railroads.
Yeah. Yeah, they got it cleared up where the Big Four had one track. Now, if you look on the extreme left-hand side of the picture, you see a guy hanging out of a little industrial switcher. That was from where my dad worked, and that's how they got that fertilizer. They ran that engine up there and stacked up loads of it on the engine and ran it back down to where they could get it in their cars. Everybody was taking it. And you might notice here on this New York Central wreck train, that's a Baldwin road switcher operating it.
Did they keep one at Riverside or Shenandoah?
I don't know. I can't answer that. You'd think so. And that steam derrick, I'm not sure where that would have come from. Washington, not Louisville.
Washington, Indiana.
Okay, that's what I figured, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Was that a policeman?
That's a railroad policeman. Yeah.
You want to make sure nobody took any
Yeah. Yeah, but he couldn't be everywhere all the time. Now, I took this picture hanging off the Riley, and it's going under the tipple at the coal yard where my father worked. This is where he worked, and he worked there in the scale house. He had an office there. That was my first job, which I started about working there on Saturday, making 50 cents an hour, which was good money back then for me. But there's what it looked like. Big Four had 2 tracks. B&O there had 1. They had a big fire, and that tipple pretty much burned down, and they had to rebuild it about 61. Here's the industrial switcher that they had that I used to ride around with that guy when I was a little kid. He'd switch. That's a GE. And this is looking west towards North Bend. And these silver hoppers were retired L&N. I think the coal company paid $500 a piece for them, and they painted them and disabled the air brakes, and they just used them Or they would unload off the barge stuff that they were gonna sell retail. There's a lot of lump and block coal, egg coal.
Notice the hand right there, ratchet style, not a wheel,
Yeah.
like on the US railroad.
Yeah, well, these were not fit for mainline service, obviously. But they,
They were just in captain, so that's all.
yeah, they never left that yard. They were just for,
Enter the plant.
yeah. Now, here's that engine 1576 that we saw in the scrap line a little bit before. And this is the crew that my father knew. And when I was just a little kid, like 6, when they'd switched the yard and I was down there, he'd hand me up to him and I'd ride around on that engine, which was mighty impressive.
Do you have any idea where that was taken?
I think this was, they were the regular crew on the Connorsville run. And I'm pretty sure this was taken at Connorsville. I didn't have a picture of it at the road, but it was worth talking about because it ran by there pretty much every day. Now, this was the last customer who didn't have who used a horse-drawn vehicle. This was 1963, and I know those aren't horses; they're mules. But he came from Kilby Road and went down US 50 all the way to North Bend to get this. That's probably 4 or 5 miles just to Kilby, and then however far after that. But he brought them down there, and he stood up and took them out on River Road. I got to hand it to him. They had more guts than anybody else down there.
Probably before traffic became heavier on.
Yeah. I just thought 1963, people were still doing this kind of stuff.
Still like old furnace.
Yeah. This would be the flood of, I believe, 1964. Went up on the hill, and you can see a lot of their stuff's just underwater there. And there's US 50, which looks pretty much the same today, where you turn off, but it shows you I had about a foot of water out there that you could kind of ease through. All right, again, this was taken off the back of the Riley, crossing the Big Miami, Cleves. And this is the west end of Valley Junction Yard in the Conrail era, obviously. Now here's the original I&O, one of their trains coming off the Brookville line across US 50 and into the Conrail yard.
Valley Junction.
What's that?
Valley Junction.
Yeah, Valley Junction. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, just a little bit of yellow and they change a B&O to an I&O, no problem. And believe it or not, the Frankfurt Cincinnati did the same thing. They made an F and a C out of a B&O. Anyway,
By the way,
yeah.
the hopper cars on this train are Minneapolis and St. Louis. They always went up to Brookville to the shingle factory.
Right. That is correct. And by the way, if I tell you something that you obviously know is incorrect, feel free to contradict me at any time.
That's next week, or this one, GP18. They acquired.
At 71? Yeah.
Down, sitting up for hours, and I called the I&O and told them, they called it. And right behind it is Sergeant GP 30. You know, because you can see a shadow.
This is the bridge over the Big Miami. This is a eastbound train. Yeah, that's that 2252 GP 30. Yeah, they had, it was hard for them to get a consist. painted the same. There's a better picture of it. There's the 53. Is that still around, Jim, or?
No, that one got sold 54, is it, South Carolina, that great.
Hmm. Yeah, a little warning there. So you know what was going on. Here's another one. WSRY. I guess that's Wisconsin Southern. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think the Cindy got it straight from the NW though. And that's probably the only time I ever saw that. I never really saw it much in use.
We have that loose now at, 11.
Really?
Or, engineering board, actually, that's my letter. I have a letter for the CIMB.
What was it, XCNO or XNW?
518, I can't remember what it is.
And then that morphed into Rail America. And some of these engines that you saw painted different colors are now painted up Rail America. Yeah. And I went back on Riley. I took a lot of pictures that day. I think that was 1969. And now we're going across the Whitewater River. And this was taken, I think, 1968. This would have been the Lawrenceburg local. I don't know whether they were still going to Aurora at that point, but. And that was an engine that stayed in the yard at Lawrenceburg. I don't think they ever did bother painting that one. And there's the yard at Lawrenceburg. Now switch over to Brower Road. This is probably the newest picture of the whole bunch here, going past Miami Fort.
Oh, that's the art. Oh, okay.
That's the city. That's the east end of the siding that just down your car.
And here's a westbound, which you don't see anymore, going down the middle of the street in Lawrenceburg. Now, here's an amazing movie-like sequence of the National Limited, and late in its life at Lawrenceburg. And
Yeah.
that a car on the left looks like a heavyweight rebuilt into a streamlined coach. It's some kind of a combine. And I don't know who would be getting off there. I guess they came in on the CNO from the east. I can't imagine anybody actually getting on the train in Cincinnati and riding to Lawrenceburg. And here he is blasting off for St. Louis. And that's going to wrap it up. Here's some real happy people down on River Road. Yeah.
No, I can't be the.
Yeah. Don Patrick, Dale Brown, my wife, and me. And we were, I believe so. And I was I carried that sign around, you know, I always made a Christmas card out of some kind of picture I took.
But in this case, you're not like sitting in a dump someplace.
No, this was, yeah. And I also didn't use this either, so. So that's it. That's it. That's it. Thank you for putting up with me.
If anybody wants to ask a specific question, we can do, but I need you to come up to the microphone to do it so that the people listening at home can hear your question. So anybody have any questions for Dave?
Good, obviously. Yeah,
Hey, George.
Just repeat.
Just gonna say,
What?
he's speechless.
your picture of the grass
Just repeat this.
in Riverside, Maine,
Yeah,
that's a good reason why Southern Railway did not buy the line.
So,
yeah.
You know, we almost bought the line.
I didn't know that. I know there was a bunch of them that we almost bought.
the question was that,
Yeah.
there was a picture in the grass and of the high grass, and that's why Southern Railway didn't end up buying the bottom. I think you're talking about CI, right?
Yeah. But it was a picture taken about 73. They'd already taken a passenger train off because it was unsafe to run it up there anymore. And, you know, it just got to the point where they couldn't run anything up there. So
What year did the signals come down?
got me, that would have been, they were still there in 74 maybe. And I left town in 73. So
Well,
I didn't know that.
well, let's cut off. Well, thank you so much, Dave, and appreciate you coming out and showing us such amazing photographs and storytelling with it. I hope everybody enjoyed that. I know I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What a great presentation. I can't say enough about it. You want to join the Cincinnati Railroad Club? Make sure you come out to our next meeting, which is the first Thursday of every month. And then, of course, we're going to have presentations on our YouTube channel as well. And, of course, we have a lot of great things if you join the Cincinnati Railroad Club. We have exclusive presentations and classes, excursions and trips, and, of course, our yearly banquet. And we have our monthly newsletter. So certainly sign up, become a member of the Cincinnati Railroad Club. And if you haven't seen it already, make sure you check out our live stream. Yes, we have a live stream just outside of the historic Cincinnati Union Terminal right here in Cincinnati, Ohio, overlooking both Norfolk Southern and CSX's rail yard. So now streaming right now on our YouTube channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And you can listen to our online scanner feed on our second camera on our YouTube channel, Camera 2. You're not only able to see a view of the yard, but you're actually able to listen to our Broadcastify feed as well. So go to youtube.com, search out Cincinnati Railroad Club, the Cincinnati Railroad Club on YouTube and on Facebook. And definitely check out our website as well. Thank you so much for joining us for this great presentation. I'm Jonathan Higgins. We hope you have a safe and wonderful March. We'll catch you again in April.